I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. We have yet another perfect pod heading in your direction. We are joined in a moment by Sean Thor Conroe, the author of Fboi. And then we're going to talk about Swag City's mayor getting COVID, the play-in tournament, all types of amazing stuff. Andrew Quo, spring has sprung. How are you feeling, buddy?
Spectacular, man. I
yes.
never felt better. The Knicks season is off my shoulders. I'm a newborn baby New Yorker, man. Nothing can hurt me.
Wow.
Fuck with me.
Wow,
Fuck.
you are genie, you are free.
That's right. Excited to be joined by Sean, though. Why don't you do the intro, Ben?
We are joined by hoops enthusiast, a basketball day one. I think, author of Fboi, which was released on late January by Little Brown & Co., known as a fearless and savagely funny examination of masculinity. Sean, what's really good?
What's going on, you guys? Thank you for having me.
So, first question here, because my interest always gets piqued when I hear about someone playing pickup basketball. That gets my ears burning.
God damn it. This is how we're going to start off the perfect pod. We got a lot of work to do.
Well, this is perfection, and it's going to get better. So I'm going to precurse this by saying I made a grievous mistake yesterday. I played pickup ball locally, indoors, for about 3.5 hours yesterday, which was a marathon of full court runs that I have not done in decades. I can't walk.
Oh,
no. My muscles are moving weird. Like, I go to lean over and I shoot like 8 inches further forward than I meant to.
What's up with the Hoka recovery slides, man?
I'm down bad, is what I'm here to say. So my question for you is, you're playing pickup ball in New York. Are you still playing outdoors?
Speaking for myself, I went in. I did the same thing on Saturday. I met a dude he wanted to go play tennis. I know, and the courts were filled because it was so nice. Was it Saturday? What was the spring day? It was Saturday at Cooper Park in Williamsburg. I don't even really go out there. And I got in a run, and we probably won like 7-8 games. It was half court, but yeah, I was pretty burnt since then.
Sean, you played AAU, right? Like, you're a baller.
Say that again?
You're a baller, right? You played AAU.
I played AAU. I played 2 years of D3.
Damn.
Yeah. So
Looks
I
like
got
you're
the
best
muscle memory,
baller
but
on
I'm
this
getting
podcast.
old. I mean, it was probably the lowest tier possible of D3. You know what I'm saying? We weren't good.
Would you describe your game as? Yeah, are you more of a Jokic type guy, bringing the ball up, helping out your teammates, or are you more of a lightning thunderbolt kind of Joel Embiid type?
Are you just a walking bucket? Is the real question he's trying to say.
I'm only 6 feet, so I was a guard, but I think I did miss the wave. I think if I came a couple years later, I think I was a shoot first point guard, and that was looked down upon during my time. So you know what I mean? I was always battling with coaches and stuff until 2 years. I swear the Warriors went off a couple years after, and then everyone's just getting the ball down the court fast and throwing up threes, you know? But I was a ball hog in my day. I had too much Iverson in me.
Hell, never.
I was playing yesterday with this guy who looked and acted and played like LaMelo Ball. And I was trying to gauge his how old he was. I'm like, he's probably early 20s. But it was a very distinct resemblance. You know, he the same kind of release on his jumper that doesn't have a lot of rotation on the ball, taking from super deep, the Euro steps, even the behind the back dribble that he always does. I'm like, did this guy? How do you develop someone's game who's like the same age as you in your early 20s? Like, is he a LaMelo Ball fan from age 16 till now, or can you adapt your game that quickly within like a year and a half? I really could not solve this conundrum.
I think I'm telling you, these kids now, they got these lateral Euro steps, these little step backs, and that you see. I think it's like, I mean, Kyrie. I feel like there's players that LaMelo was the ball boys are copying, but you definitely see it in the kids when they go to the park, the high schoolers.
Everybody's got it. Yeah, like every kid who's under 25 has a step back jumper. They all have a Euro step. But it's funny because it becomes just as predictable as normal stuff after you've seen it once. If you're some of from the older guard, because we never saw it growing up, but after a while you're like, all right, he's just gonna Euro step left. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Yeah. No. Damn, yeah, LaMelo's been going off too. I don't know if I got the full bracket knowledge, but I definitely stay up on my players that I follow highlight wise.
Well, you went to a Nets game recently, I think.
I did,
with
yeah.
Our good friend Camp Marnell.
2 days before they let Kyrie back. It was sad, but no, it was good. Yeah. I've been to a couple Nets games this year. Yeah, it was good. I wanted to see Kyrie go off, but.
And are you from? You're not from New York originally, but do you align yourself with the Nets or the Knicks?
I've always been kind of like a play. I mean, I guess I'm from California originally, so I guess I was out there hooping in some Warriors shorts. But this year, I don't know. I mean, I've been liking watching the Nets go in.
Wow, that was a very stressful answer, and it did not sound like you were a Knicks fan, and I accept that answer.
I know. I knew it was gonna come up. I knew I was gonna get some shit.
Wow.
No, it's all good. It's all good. You got the best.
You
player
guys
on
are
the planet.
devastated
It's
by
cool.
this. No. I mean, well, I've had some.
He's floundering,
No,
trying to get
dude,
back into
on
Quo's
the
good
ropes,
graces.
On the ropes, man.
No, I like watching. I'd rather go to a Knicks game than a Nets game. I'll tell
I'm
you
a
that much,
basketball
what I'm saying?
fan, man. Yeah.
No, I don't
No,
know.
I mean, there's
I
hot.
like seeing young Curry going in. I like seeing all these young guards or these like shooter guards that the Nets got. I mean, I just want to see the full thing in effect, including Ben Simmons. I want to see that
Hells
happen.
There's
Yeah,
higher
I mean-
quality shit going on in Barclays. Let's just admit it. There's
Yeah,
better ball.
to me, it's like I would like to see the Nets go far in the playoffs from the selfish purposes of being able to attend games in New York, which is not really something that's been a possibility for a long time. I mean, the Knicks have sporadically made the
They gave
playoffs.
Two or three playoff games.
I mean, I went during the Pacers series, but that was a long time ago. And also, those tickets are hard to come by because it's so rare of an occurrence. It's like a weird blood moon or something. But the Nets, if we get, a long playoff round out of the Nets, I can actually go to a couple games. And last year I did that. And watching KD drop 49 against the Bucks is like one of the most memorable games I've ever attended. So I am selfishly hoping that the Nets can remain active for a couple months here.
Is Eric Adams a Knicks or Nets fan? Because I know De Blasio went full Brooklyn on us.
I still think that Adams was going to screw over the Nets, but he couldn't screw over the Yankees and Mets. I think he would have screwed the Nets over, even though he's from Brooklyn. And the way that we heard KD call him Eric, it's clear that they know each other from Zero Bond. That they're like hanging out, 6 floors under the ground, politicking, smoking cigars, like that. The fact that he called him Adams made it Eric made it very clear that he personally has talked to him about this thing.
Why is KD so chummy with the police? You don't just like have a cigar with a police officer, man. It's not how the Nets do it.
You won't catch Randall doing that.
You won't catch IQ with the police.
Things changing cop-wise in the city. Is that what you guys were talking about? I got a ticket last week for smoking a cig on an outdoor subway station by 6 cops.
What
They
the
were
fuck?
they were all on off duty. They were just like all plain clothes.
You were
And I missed
on the
my training.
platform?
I was on the platform. Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
If I felt like some things were changing in
I've
the
kind of
city.
wondered about that. Yeah, I mean,
That
well,
seems
Adams,
not. Yeah,
Adams wants to flood the subways with cops.
yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
He loves this shit. It's good revenue for the city. It's all his homies giving out these tickets, and people who pay property taxes love it.
I mean, he's just a cop, so
Literally a cop.
he's literally
Oh,
the guy.
man.
He was the key. I mean, that was his deal. He was the like the head of the NYPD, who then became like the Brooklyn borough president, and then now is the mayor. I mean, he's literally a lifer cop. But he's got COVID right now, so like it's going to be really tough for him because he's not going to be able to get near like a photographer. He's not going to be able to go to a party. Can't go to Zero Bond. Like what's the poor mayor going to do?
Yo, he loves his nightlife, man. He just dropped in. There was that image that kind of went viral that Rachel Tashin posted of him dropping in on a dinner. I forget for which fashion brand. So like
Valentino.
Yeah, man. I mean, yo, shout out to our New York City mayor who's like, I love nightlife. Let's get nightlife going again. New York is boring. I'm not mad at these words, right? So when he drops into a Valentino dinner, I'm like, fuck it, whatever. But like, he's also a police officer. So if everyone's excited to see this police officer at your dinner, like, what are we really doing?
he said that. Get
those-
nightlife going again.
Yeah, he loves
Yeah, but
this
it's
shit.
his version
Love
of
that.
nightlife, though. It's not. It's not
Okay.
necessarily going to be a version we like. It's like steakhouses and cigar shops and like bottle service clubs.
like Knicks second round playoff games.
Those
I
are-
will say I saw some people going in today. I saw some. I mean, I've noticed the chaperones on the subway stations, essentially, right? Like telling everyone to stand back and stuff. But I noticed some people going in on this, like a squad of like 4 or 5 people going in on a green space uptown the other day. So I don't know. Maybe it's good. People just doing city improvement. I don't know if that's part of Eric Adams too, but that's just something I noticed.
Yeah, I feel like he's more about incarcerating people. It's more like locking them up for long periods of time for minor violations.
He's like Rob Pelinka. He rules with fear. But
But I was going to say, like, I saw a kid who was playing ball yesterday, and he was wearing like a precinct shirt. And I'm realizing these are community outreach events that the
that
NYP
basketball
does.
shit.
Right, of course. And I've seen multiple kids at the YMCA like wearing these things. But I did see that yesterday. I'm like, who's going to take this kid aside? You can't be wearing a precinct shirt around town. I know it was free. Maybe we'll give you some cookies merch trade-in program. It's like the cops do it with guns. We'll
Yeah,
do
right.
it with the shirts that were given out at precinct basketball tournaments.
Yeah, bring in your cop paraphernalia, and we'll hook you up with some Beavis and Butthead action. Maybe some clothing items that say basketball on them, just so you get the clothes do the talking for you.
If you've been down on Mott Street or Canal Street and purchased one of those weird NYPD hats that cost like $6, we'll replace it with a Grateful Dead purple bucket.
While supplies last.
Well, so earlier, we were talking about, we both have books out that came out in a couple months span, and personally, as someone who's been a writer for newspapers and magazines, it's always kind of been the inverse relationship between the public, the press, and my output, because I was a member of the press. So the stuff that I would write was, for the New York Times or whoever, or reviews of albums. It was just kind of throwing out this, whale carcass, and it would float to the bottom and people would sort of take bites of it. But when you're putting out a book like you did, it's subjected to what the critics say, who are from outlets and things like that. How did you deal with like the criticism that came towards Fboi?
Oh man, I mean, Yeah, the path of the book to get how to come out how it came out was pretty wild and pretty unexpected. Basically, I had this indie publisher named Gian DiTrapano who ran this publishing house, Tyrant Books, and I was working on it with him for a couple years, and it was all set to be published. And then he passed away a year ago, a little over a year ago, and then it kind of turned into this big thing where this book probably it got just put out on a bigger outlet, you know. So there's definitely, and I don't know if it was too experimental. If it hadn't happened like it happened, I don't know if it would have come out on a bigger press. So I mean, I a lot of the book has a kind of like anti, kind of tongue in cheek, but kind of serious like anti literariness in it. So I just kind of knew when I was throwing it into the gauntlet of these, literary outlets, there was going to be some pushback and some, I don't know, some. I really it's just I just look at the internet way less. That's what it's come to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I think it's good. People talking about some. It's probably hitting some chord. I feel like it's been a lot of.
Yes, it's. I feel like early on, the advice that people always had, and we're talking years ago, was like, don't read the comments, don't read the comments. So, you'd write something that would run in print, and then put it on their version of of like their print website, which at this point was like kind of a like a secondary feature to a print magazine, and they'd have these like bullshit little comment sections, and you have like 7 comments on it, and be like, don't read the comments. And that was kind of the approach. And then now we're at a point where it's all comments. Everything is comments. Like Twitter is just comments. It's just comments. Like, so to your point, I
Books are
understand
just
that.
comments. Yeah.
Well, right. That I mean, it's inescapable. You can say like, I'm not going to read the comments. Let me get on Twitter. Well, how do you do that? How do you separate that? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, I mean, it got real with my book. Also, I was kind of in a little bit of like a alt-lit, like online outside community in terms of who my writing was associated with. And then when it got pushed into the a wider release, there was I mean, I think there was even someone kept messaging me how there was like someone impersonating me on Reddit, like on the Red Scare Reddit, like just commenting on everything. And then like it got flagged by someone, and then they made a new account. And after a while, I was like, I can't control. You know what I mean? Like you kind of just gotta let people talk. But it's also kind of flattering if someone's spending all their day, like, you know what I mean? And also became a thing where
what was this? What was this fake account
it
like
was
saying?
like
How
I
are they
only
trying to represent you?
a long time ago I glanced at it, like it was like a parody of like the slang I use in the book, and just I guess some slangs I talk with, and then like just saying super cringe like sus stuff about, like, it was like a very like shallow understanding of my book, also because the title, it makes you think it's a certain thing, or yeah, so it was just like commenting on everything, like it was crazy, and then yeah.
I mean that was like a bold choice for a title, and it definitely has a gravity towards it, right? Because like we're not sure what that word means, but we have an idea, like the word hipster before it, right? Can you tell our listeners just quickly, like what the book is really about?
Yeah, so the book is really about a dude who's like he's like a bike messenger. He does bike deliveries for Postmates. He's pretty broke. He's in his late 20s, living in Philly, and trying to be an artist, kind of trying to be a writer, or formerly SoundCloud rapper. That's kind of what kind of a
Right.
joke, but and then he's like dealing with a breakup. He's dealing with like a devastating breakup, kind of, and he's like trying to deal with all his feelings towards that while trying to survive, stay solvent financially, and then as the book goes on, he kind of investigates different ways of, of his views towards the world, and kind of has a breakdown, and then kind of has to bounce back. That's pretty much the arc of the novel. I think a lot of people don't get to the breakdown part, and they think, you know, I don't know, they don't. I think also when you write with a certain type of slang or occupy a certain like linguistic domain, some people don't give it the benefit of any benefit of doubt of having any self awareness. So
Right.
I think that leads to a lot of like the clowning, which I'm just like, all right, well,
There's there's always going to be the authenticity police, right? Like whether you're playing street ball or writing a book. And I think like the thing you said something previously that me and Ben had definitely taken into consideration when we were writing The Joy of Basketball, which is like, how do we appeal to something next to or adjacent to the media or literature, however you present like a bunch of bound pages, like in book form. And I mean, personally, I agree with you. Like, how do you reach people who maybe don't love to read? The only book I've ever read in my life was the book I wrote. So like, I don't know what it feels
we are
like.
staunchly anti-reading at this pod.
Yes.
I mean, that's damn most people,
Right. And yeah, and sometimes a book is the comment section, and I think like especially with the bullshit that NBA Twitter goes through, which is not too dissimilar than politics Twitter or entertainment Twitter, the way we go.
And I'm sure literary Twitter too.
Is literary Twitter a thing? It is, right? Like, how fun could that
It's
be?
got to be.
Are there jokes?
The words would be totally, meaningless to me as they're about books, but I'm sure it exists.
Are there like Jonathan Franzen memes? Like,
Yes. If I read his books, I would understand them.
Yeah, there's some memes circulating about my book for a minute. Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely a lot of chatter that people stop at. They stop at the chatter. They don't look further. Did you guys face any clapback for your guys' book?
I mean, a little bit. I felt like the stuff that was most annoying was kind of complimentary, if that makes sense. The stuff where people would compare us to previous works that we respected, but we had intentionally kind of tried to take pains to make sure that it was different, and people would still say, it reminds me of that. I'm like, well, that work is great. We really respected it. It was influential, but we were trying to avoid that comparison. But, that stuff is more like just sort of your own kind of internal sort of belief system about what you're trying to create. I think the other thing that I would say we were criticized a little bit for was really just our title, and that was because it's The Joy of Basketball, and it's about the NBA, and we didn't specify that. So I think there were some people who purchased it and said, what about college? What about international? What about women's basketball? And we're like, those are all valid. They're all awesome too. Maybe we should have clarified that it's The Joy of Basketball, a history of the modern NBA. Like that could have been a tweak in retrospect that I might have made.
But don't you guys think like people who tell you what you can and can't talk about are like the worst people to hang with? Being like, okay, we're not talking about the Chris Rock thing right now. I'm like, oh yeah, you're the least fun. This is a type of person. It exists in real life and online, right? Like, we are not talking about sports tonight. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. I only think about that from a clarification purpose, where I wouldn't have to hear that complaint, because I'm like, oh, I get why you actually thought this. You are not wrong in thinking this. I don't need to hear your lie that you made up about how your daughter was like, where are the women within the book? I'm like, that didn't happen. But I understand.
I got that the other day. Like, how come you guys don't talk about the WNBA? I'm like, we had a lot of words written about it, but it's its own book, and I am not necessarily an expert in like uptown New York, even though I love this city, even though I live in Manhattan. So like, me talking about the WNBA is kind of trickier, right? I need to get educated a little bit.
Well, it was also, and this is too boring in like this how the sausage gets made thing, is like we didn't actually know what the boundaries of our book would be when we came up with the title. That's like
not enough pages, man.
Kind of the reality.
Yeah.
We didn't know if it would be limited solely to the NBA, and we wouldn't have college and international and WNBA. And then, as Andrew said, once it became clear that we're dealing not with a sea of pages, but like this like closing puddle of water that we can fit our ideas into, like we just don't have the space. Yeah. But I mean, yeah, that to me was like the most relevant criticism, I thought.
Yeah, I think you guys straddled. I think you guys did a good job, like making it appealing to. I don't know, just the Jesus intro. Like, Even the scope of it, of the ambition of the scope of the time you guys were covering. I thought it was pretty interesting, especially since it coincided with like when I came up. But there were some '90s players y'all were mentioning that I didn't really know about because I was too young.
Oh damn.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's funny sometimes playing with guys who are like in their like early 20s and like, well, I've never really heard of this Steve Nash character. You're like, oh, right. That actually isn't crazy though. It's crazy, but it's not crazy.
Well, Sean, I was thinking about the way your book is going to like live as we live, and I'm like, Lil B, man, like I know some kids who are like, who's that? I'm like, God damn it. Tyler just played an arena, which he just, obviously he's a huge artist now, but it blows my damn old ass mind that Odd Future is doing arena numbers. Yeah.
I remember, I went to I think I was in like eighth grade or freshman when the pack first happened, and I was going to Santa Cruz High, but like I lived in Sacramento for middle school, and I remember when the pack, like I went, I don't even know, I've known Lil B since like, I think I met him a couple times. Like, one time I was at Outside Lands and he just pulled up in a car, and he just had the window down. He was driving along the line, and I was like, "Yo, Lil B," and he was just waiting for someone to notice him. His name's Brandon. Right. His name's Brandon. Yeah, he went to Berkeley High. No, yeah, I know it's pretty funny. It's pretty funny, especially with that rant being in this big ass book.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw you guys really pointed out Jeremy Lin. I played with Jeremy Lin in high school one time at an open gym.
No shit. Tell me all about this. Yeah,
he was because they won state when I was like in earlier high school, and then after he won state, his coach went and taught this junior college, Kenyatta College in San Jose, and one of my homies who was a year older had a recruiting visit there, and we played this full open gym. There was this ex-player from Georgetown who was like 6'9", and they were just going at it the whole open gym. But he has like crazy, like, I don't know, you don't realize how much like bounce or just like lower body strength people have till when you play him in it. But yeah, he hit me with some like transition no look passes I wasn't ready for, but it was sick playing with him.
And you're half Asian. Like, does the name Jeremy Lin make you as wistful as me?
I mean, it was pretty sick watching him go off when he did.
Fuck yeah, that was crazy.
You know what I mean? It was crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you got to play with him, which is wild. And like, I've been around him a little bit by accident, and he just seems like a normal. Like, we know he's a God-fearing man, and he's very conscientious of the way he presents himself in this world, and he doesn't strike me as somebody that many people would have stories about, even though when Insanity was going down, New York City was trying to like find him on his brother's couch and shit. I remember Kunle from Iraq was just like, I'm gonna find him this weekend, and I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna be that fun, but let me know.
Well, I mean, Kunle could have looked close that one time when he came by PS41. I wasn't there, but
Lin went to
Lin
PS41.
And he came and played at the pickup run there on Saturday with Tony Chan and those guys.
Oh,
and
yeah.
They were filming it with his brother, I believe. And this was, I want to say he was on the Knicks, but it was pre-Linsanity. I could be getting the timeline slightly wrong. It was definitely before Linsanity. I think he was on the Knicks at that point, though. But a few people played him and they're like, yeah, he was going like 1/4 speed and was still like way better than everybody. Obviously. Was he the best player that you've ever balled against or balled with?
Probably. That was an open gym. Probably the craziest game I encountered was like it was a tournament in Vegas in high school, like on that circuit, and our elite team. I was on the. I guess we didn't play against him, but there was this team, the Mean Streets Express, that had Derrick Rose and Eric Gordon on the same AAU team. And like it was just Eric Gordon like throwing these full court, and D Rose was doing these dunks back then where he would just throw it into the hoop. You know what I mean? Like he would cock it back with both hands and like throw it in. And then they were playing. I remember there was this auxiliary gym, and they played against OJ Mayo's team, and that was like the craziest game I witnessed in high school.
Yo, OJ Mayo was a crazy legendary player.
He would
Yeah,
get open.
man.
He'd have open wing threes, and he'd look around and just bank it in deliberately. Like I never seen anyone do that before. Um, but yeah, I think I would play like the where. Yeah, yeah. Back then we had yeah. That was probably the peak competition that I had back then. But that was pretty crazy. Those two. That's why I was looking at you guys' book. You guys were like, I think you had one graph where you weren't throwing D Rose enough love. It was like, and I was like, damn, dude, you guys give me that small bubble. Yeah, but
I think he's got a big illustration though, I believe.
Yeah, he's got a full page. I'm not the biggest D Rose fan on earth, but when he came out with the Bulls, that was crazy. In Memphis, he was just wild. So, respect to those years. I'm not the biggest. I don't love his style of play these days, but respect to a great pro.
I mean, I think about that era of like those guys, Mayo and Tyreek Evans, like both banned from the NBA for
Tariq is back though.
for drugs. Oh, Mayo is 34.
wasn't
so
it for
it's,
weed or was it pills?
I'm sure it was something harder.
I mean, I
don't
think
know.
it was probably cocaine, just to be honest, probably.
Right.
I mean, because the way that they do it, if you get caught with cocaine, like they don't announce it, but you'll get a suspension. And if you go back and you look at Tyreek Evans' past, he always had these like 50-game suspensions where like this guy can't stay healthy, like hamstring injury,
Right.
45 games. You look back year by year, you're like, oh, this guy was getting suspended for drugs left and right, and we just thought he was injury prone. So, he's off his suspension now, I believe, and he's only 32. I don't know if Mayo is able to come back, but he's 34, so he probably doesn't have much of a window. Still, it just seems crazy though that you can be banned from a sport when you're in your prime and like get a lifetime ban. It's like, why not just keep suspending guys for a bunch of games, and then at some point teams are not going to hire them anyway.
Is it for their own good though? Like if Tyreek Evans, like it's none of our fucking business, but what if he needs like more than just some time off? Like
I mean, I don't know,
therapy,
right?
like if you're addicted to drugs, like I don't know, man, shit. I have sympathy. For that affliction, and like I heard some podcast where someone was saying some of these players like do shots of whiskey and Hennessy before they step on the court, just to take the edge off.
Oh, I could see that. Maybe that's possible.
Just like a little bit. Just so
but
they're nervous, right? So it was a pod about like these players being like, "Yo, you guys don't understand how nervous I get before a game, and sometimes like in my backpack, I'll have a little shot of whiskey. It'll mellow me out, and then it'll take me to the intros, and then the tip off."
I mean, I get it. Our buddy Jordan would always do a shot of whiskey before our cookies pod. So like I get that
Any
high
time of
performance level as like an elite podcaster. I see how that could happen.
I'll take a shot before I read. I mean, I guess that's pre-COVID though, Like now you got Kyrie on the bench breaking his fast like mid-game, He was intermittent fasting all day. You guys seen that clip?
Oh no! What did he sneak a hot dog like Westbrook?
He was I don't know. He was eating a little package of something like in the middle.
Good for him. Good for him. God is your interpretation of him.
After the pregame like sage ritual, I don't know. I don't know if you could be doing shots for the game now,
Man,
But I mean that game was a 3 p.m. game? Like how is he doing as far as like was it nightfall yet, or was he still was he violating?
I don't even remember. I saw a clip, but it could have been a Sunday game, He's achieving ketosis for the game.
No spiritual construct could contain Kyrie Irving. He is his own vibe.
So all right. There was a thing a few weeks ago. I don't think we actually ever talked about it on the podcast. It was just some Twitter discourse about reading books in bars.
Oh,
And,
we did talk about this. Yeah.
Did we?
Yeah, we did.
I mean, being anti readers, I know where we would fall on that we'd say no. but I feel like we could add like fuckboy to that. Like, can you take fuckboy to the bar and drink and have your shot, and you're holding that at the bar? Like, what's the typical response?
Damn. It's a hardcover. So we talking cover or no cover?
Oh, it's the cover, baby.
With the cover, I mean, I think of all books. I read in random places, but I'm always embarrassed. I try to hide it. You know. You're gonna start a conversation probably.
Right.
But that's
Which
the
is
whole
usually
point,
the
right?
goal when people read at bars.
It's like the pickup artist. Instead of a balloon or a stapler, you bring in a copy of The Joy of Basketball, and just people are just flocking towards you.
I wouldn't want to be in that bar if that happened though. That's yeah. You know, that crazy cover, like, yeah, that was another thing, like one of the last things that I decided with my former publisher who passed away. And it was like, ever since that happened, I was like, okay, we're stuck with it, you know? I don't know if I would have done it over again with that face all beamed up like that on the cover.
Right. The cover is a face with the eyes whited out, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I think I made a joke about that to one interviewer where I said it was like the fuckboy demon taking over, but it was actually which it wasn't really true. It was a joke, but now everyone's run with that. It was really like the artist's interpretation of it, and
Right.
I feel like there's a lot of sun stuff. Like he gets he has like all these like skin issues and stuff, and he kind of gets healed by like getting, I don't know. There's a lot of sun symbolism, so I think he was thinking of that. But it's a lot for a book cover.
Is the fuckboy era over, do you think?
Well, actually, just let me jump in really quickly because this is exactly to what Andrew is discussing here. There was a pod that we did, I want to say, I don't know, let's say a year ago, 6 months ago. I forget whatever it was.
I don't remember, but it was perfect.
It was perfect, no doubt. But we've done every successive pod better since. But the conversation was sort of the etymological history of the word fuckboy. And we went through it on the show. And I think it was New York Magazine that had you kind of describe that same process. And I think you nailed it. I think you said exactly the same things we did, that there were like 4 different definitions of it. Mm-hmm. It came from here. I was like, all right, this guy knows his fuckboys.
Hey, I'm not gonna
he's
pull
a
up
fuckboy expert.
calling that without knowing. You know what I mean? There's actually an early page I did. It was we took it out, but it was a straight etymology page. But yeah, it's not just the more recently well known untrustworthy man in a romantic context.
I refuse to use that.
That's actually that's a very
definition.
recent. Yeah, that's that's the thing. You say like people say like, oh, is a term gone? I mean, just like the more classic definition for just like probably a term that men call other men.
Mm-hmm.
Like just like lacking integrity or just being being soft or whatever, or kind of shiesty. That's like a timeless archetype. I feel like
I always think
or
about,
even like the homophobic sort of jail usage
Exactly.
of it, which I think
Exactly.
kind of like was where it came
where
from.
it really came from. Yeah.
I'll accept the hype beast version because it's funny,
Yeah.
Right.
but the one about like the girls being like, oh yeah, he's a fuckboy, he won't call you back. I'm like, that's just not what it means.
that's just called like dating. But yeah, I always
That guy sounds fine.
yeah. I always think of the word like punk, right? Like in the 70s, it was like an idea, something you committed to, and you had your own form of it. And after a while, it just meant like loud guitars and spiky bleached hair.
Right.
Like, oh, it's just a kind of music people talk about. And I'm like, and I'm sort of with Ben on this. I'm just like, oh, I accept fuckboy in terms of like a visual. Like, let's just make it a hype beast thing. That kind of makes sense because when you talk about someone who ghosts somebody after a third date, I'm like, that's just like being a merciful dater, right? Like, you don't want to be up all in someone's like texts and DMs being like, I I didn't really love when you mentioned this, and the third date didn't go great. I'm into something else now. I'm dating someone else. Would you like to know about them? I'm like, that sounds fucking horrible.
Right. It's yeah. What I see someone say that like ghosting is actually a
Mercy.
sane and humane response.
That was Dasha, right? Like Dasha.
That was Dasha. That was Dasha, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, there's also like you said, there's like someone who calls someone a fuckboy. There's like a lot of assumptions contained in that, or even like the original kind of homophobic usage of it. And I'm always interested in, or even someone dude who's like a hype beast and is like attentive to his attire or whatever. Like, is that necessarily like the worst thing?
No, we
You know what I
people
mean?
who are into stuff. Yeah,
No, I don't know. I'm not saying it isn't, but just tackling those big questions.
I think Andrew, you brought up a good point though, using punk, because punk had basically the exact same homophobic jail connotations.
Yeah.
It's the same phrase for the same type of thing in the same environment, just 20 years apart.
Yeah.
Or like, here's an example
apart.
of
whatever the punk came into the lexicon, but that's what it meant way before, as you said, that it was, you're going to wear, I don't know, like Alexander McQueen stuff with studs.
Wow.
Or you're going to listen to guitars and have denim on.
Right, like you could just put on like a Crash shirt now or a Misfit shirt now. It's like, well, we understand what that is. It's not as complicated as it once was.
Yeah. What do you guys think about? I don't know if you guys talk about this a lot already. Like one thing I was thinking about is like the whole Ben Simmons situation, where I've had this like recurring take, which is getting tested a lot as he still isn't coming back to play. But I've had this like in defense of Ben Simmons take.
We're listening. Andrew, are you interested in this? Because I am.
This is relevant to my interest. Go on.
Listen, okay. He shot terrible from the free throw line. Okay, all this stuff. He shouldn't have passed the ball against the Hawks. But also, should he not have? Like, okay, you have an absolute beast who's like just trying to push the rock all the time. The Sixers, like, okay, this is my case. It's not, no one's done the take of like how the most flagrant thing of how all that went down was not Doc even. It was Embiid. When Embiid threw Ben under the bus to the press.
We went through that.
Okay. But you don't hear that, and it's like this, it's like everyone's like, oh, he needs to man up and like be more selfish. It's like, why are we encouraging? I don't know. That seems to have like kind of, no matter how much people say like, masculinity is changing or whatever, a lot of contained in like using fuckboy in this like purely pejorative way, like it's like the assumption is like, oh, you gotta man up and
right,
not pass the rock. I don't know. I just think he's still a beast, and it's also it's because he got a lot of money, but he can't control how much money he got.
He did his
I don't know. This is also me getting flooded out with hate and like sympathizing with Ben Simmons.
I mean, you were in a safe space right now, Sean. You were amongst basically maybe the only pro Ben Simmons podcast on the planet.
Damn.
I tweeted this and I was just on Pod Don't Lie yesterday talking about it. And this came up again in the Jokic versus Embiid MVP debate. Being like, is passing sus? All he does is pass. And this started with LeBron James, right? Versus Michael Jordan. Critics of LeBron would be like, well, he's not man enough to take the last shot. I'm like, fuck does that mean? Right?
Exactly.
And then it goes through Ben Simmons being like, well, he doesn't have the fortitude to take a team all the way because he doesn't have the confidence to finish the play by himself. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And then now we're talking about Jokic versus Joel. And I agree, Joel sold his dude out. Joel talks freely, and I love him, but he's also a police officer. I think he would get along great with Eric Adams. Yeah. He's a snitch, right? Him and Doc are snitches.
That's what
they
I'm
don't
saying.
protect their guys.
I mean,
That's so flagrant on a fraternal level, to your
Yeah,
boy.
I would say so.
You can't blame your teammates like that. I agree. And the other thing, for all of the knocks on Simmons, whether they're valid or not, which I don't think most of them are valid, but if you did think they're valid, the one thing he never did was say one negative thing about any of his coaches, any of his teammates, even the Sixers ownership, the Sixers GMs. Never complained once about his role, never complained once publicly about wanting more shots.
Right.
That stuff could have happened behind closed doors, but he was like the paragon of professionalism when it came to, like, public facing stuff. And for people to, always be trying to bait Elton into talking about him, or Joe saying things, or Doc, to me that was what was foul about it, because this was a guy who was like unblemished, spotless, when his track record over years and years and years came to, like, he never said a thing publicly. Even when he basically quit the team. I mean, he did quit the team. He ended up getting traded. He didn't say a public negative thing about anyone then either. Like, I just feel like that guy handled things right as far as how it goes towards the public. Internally, I don't know the specifics of the situation, other than I think it's pretty clear that he really dislikes Doc Rivers and kind of had enough of working with Embiid. Those seem to be the major factors. But yeah, you cannot criticize your teammates in public. It's just a violation.
But it's that weird social media dynamic being like, your silence is deafening. So it's guilt. It's an admission of guilt, right? And Joel's out here explaining things to us, telling us how it is, maybe fictionalizing a bit, but we read that as the truth, as opposed to Ben Simmons not saying shit, right? And if shit goes down, I don't trust Magic Johnson. I don't trust Doc Rivers. I don't trust Joel Embiid. Ben Simmons, man. He did everything right.
The guy's a vault.
Kinda.
So was this a pro Jokic as MVP combo you had when you said his passing stats? The case was that Embiid should get
I just don't
he's
think.
Over here
No, I love both of them. I don't think we have to disparage one over the other. They're pretty deadlocked, in my opinion. Just pick one. I picked Joe because I like him better as a player. I'm a Sixers fan. If I'm not rooting for the Knicks, but like, to call like Jokic not like full of fortitude is just, it's a mistaken take, I think. And something toxic is a dumb word, but it exists in sports. And this is what we're doing, right? And you played sports and you know firsthand. And I just think this is an opportunity for us to not be such assholes.
Yeah. But you're right. But you know what's kind of strange is that, I don't feel like these dynamics happen as much like when you're playing sports.
Oh, get out of here!
Except that
YMCA
I'm saying
king
that
over here.
No. I just mean I'm thinking back to like playing organized basketball here and there. Like there are teammates that you think are chuckers and stuff, but I don't feel like it gets as toxic as when you introduced elements like the media and fans. Because of course, nothing I've ever played includes media or fans. It's just a bunch of guys hooping. But like, I feel like the game itself, you've got your jealousies and your rivalries, obviously, but it's the insertion of incredible amounts of money and scrutiny.
Tony Braxton.
Tony Braxton, this window of time that you can make generational wealth,
right?
And then you can't do it before it, and you can't do it afterwards, and you might blow out your knee, and everything changes. So like, I get the tension here why this happens, but I think speaking about the Sixers fan base, and I'm only speaking about them because I'm more familiar with their discussions when we're talking about Joe and Simmons, it's like there's the kind of just the idea that you want to blame people for whatever happens. Like there's always an individual to blame. It could be Doc, or it could be Brett Brown, or it could be Ben Simmons, or I don't know, Covington, or Nerlens, or Okafor, or Tobias Harris. There's just always someone to blame. And I think that what we try to talk about in our book is that maybe there isn't this morality that needs to be assigned to something that occurs on a basketball court. Like, they didn't lose because someone didn't want it enough, or someone didn't work hard enough, or someone was being, he was being a pussy.
Your best player has to take the last shot. Like, get out of here.
That's what I mean. Like, maybe we don't need like a moral or ethical compass to describe what happens on the basketball court, and we don't need a scapegoat.
Right.
We can look at what went wrong and think about it in terms of like it being a fucking game.
Right. I mean, it's Frank Vogel right now, or they usually the coach. They just take out the coach, with the scapegoat.
Pelinka did him so dirty a few minutes ago. Did you guys see that press conference?
I didn't
No,
see
no,
the
no. What
press
do you do?
conference.
Pelinka was like, I'm not talking about blaming here. I don't want to talk about Frank. We're talking about the future. End of question. I'm like, yo, this guy won you a championship. You just can't go up there and be like, hey, thank you, Frank. You got us a fucking championship trophy in the building. And things didn't work out. And, like, I take my blame. Whatever. They played it on ESPN, and it immediately cut to Richard Jefferson, and he was seething. He was just like, that motherfucker. And I kind of agree. It's just like, you don't do your dude dirty like that. You set the team up to fail, and it didn't work out. But, like, the coach is not the problem there.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me bring this over to the Knicks, where I can really get you going here. The perception is that the Knicks need to make a change with Thibs, and they need to, I guess, like retool their efforts, build around the young guys. Would you say that's the common sentiment around the Knicks?
For sure.
I would say the main problem here is you just don't have ownership, the front office, and the coach aligned. And if they're not aligned, this is the kind of bullshit that happens when you have someone like Thibs saying, well, my job is to try to win every possible game. I'm going to go do that.
Are you sure they're not aligned?
What is the alignment? I mean,
Is
if they're
Dolan
aligned,
Doesn't
I don't
Dolan
know.
always want to win games? I mean, he hasn't gotten his superstar ever, but like he's always won games late in the season. That's his whole thing.
Well, no, I mean, I think you're making a valid point. I mean, do you think the Knicks are aligned that
Yeah.
this was the year they were going to go for it?
Yeah, for sure. I think they were hoping for a second round appearance. I think they were very happy to have a first round appearance last year. I think the management wanted this. All the hate towards Tibbs, I mean, fine. Like, he has flaws we all know about, but he's working for a strong personality and a very powerful personality. And I think both their interests are probably what we saw on the court, which is like, yeah, I mean, let's win some games at the end. They benched a bunch of players. They played some dudes that I can't even pronounce their last names. But like,
Are you in on Obi now after his 42-10 outburst?
at least he did it, right? Like, you got to play well against teams that let you play well. But
Well, also, I mean, 42-10 is 42-10. What are you gonna do? Take it away from him?
I love Obi Toppin. I mean, not to get too granular, but he can't create his own shot. But he's awesome. He's gonna have a long career. I hope he plays a lot. And the beef is it's Tibbs' fault that he did not play these young guys all season, and we would have won more games. I'm like, these players are still bad. Like, McBride is bad. Sims is not good yet. Toppin and Quickly, we got to see him. Now we're ready for the big thing next year, right? The big minutes. But I don't like scapegoating. I'm skeptical of scapegoating in general. And to call someone a fuckboy, to call someone a punk, and to say Tibbs is the problem. I'm like, this team is mid, right? Like, this team didn't really have a shot to begin with.
Ben, you think they should have been more strategic about orchestrating their tank?
I mean, I just feel like the Knicks are always puzzling to me. I'm never quite sure what the game plan is. Like,
Yeah.
all right, you're going to split the difference here. You're going to try to win some games, go to the playoffs. We're also going to be adding draft picks. We're also going to be trying to play some young guys in the mix. Like, it's really trying to thread a tough needle when
For sure.
ultimately the biggest problem for the Knicks has been the same thing. They just have not gotten the star,
Donovan
hasn't happened in
Mitchell,
draft.
here we go.
Hasn't happened in free agency or via trade. They just haven't gotten that guy.
I think you're right about in the NBA when all kinds of money is involved and it's not as simple as being on the pickup court. But I think the teams that do well somehow manage to get a dynamic going where they're not blaming each other. Whether that's like the Warriors or even. I mean, I was reading your guys' LeVar Ball part of the book, And as funny as his, post big baller brand antics were, like, something that got me back into basketball was watching all those like 20-minute like baller vision, like Chino Hills high school clips. And I feel like LeVar has this like, I don't know, this attitude of like passing confidence to everybody on the court and letting everybody go off in a way that you would see manifest like in a pickup game. And like, so when I see like Embiid do stuff or even like LeBron, I'm like, even if it's at that level and it is business, the fact that it's like so explicitly about that in the media is like, I don't know. Seems like,
I mean,
in that you'll never win. Like, that's why I think the Sixers will never win, because the whole tanking, the whole process was like flawed. It's a flawed outlook.
it's, when we use examples like LeVar Ball and raising these two amazing fucking basketball players and LeBron James, and they're culturally like, did LeVar Ball set up a culture to succeed that the Knicks somehow haven't in MSG? And it's hard to use examples like LeBron and LaMelo and Alonzo, and we don't really mention LiAngelo because like these are just geniuses. And I think the trouble I have in general with everything is trying to explain why something happens and why something good happens and bad happens. And I think a lot of it is cultural. But if I won the lotto, and I know they say there's a lotto curse, like a lot of good things would happen. I'd like pay off my friend's student debt. I'd like do some good things with a thing that I did not have access to. I don't know if that's cultural or if that's something that is good, right? I don't know.
I think when you're talking about LeVar Ball, what I think about is ideas. And I think about him being mocked for ideas that even a couple of years later sound incredibly sensible, and that people with greater power and resources scoffed at and then adopted. And that's kind of what power does, right? It like makes fun of people, then it steals your shit. And, him saying, we need an alternative to the G League or going overseas, and we're going to start a league, and every team's going to be called the Ballers, and it's going to be a place for guys who don't want to play in college or even continue playing in high school ball can, find a home and get paid. And everyone's like, that's insane. A couple of years later, the NBA is like, actually, we're going to create G League teams and pay certain players like $500,000 versus a $20K salary, and we're going to be actually the ones who will harbor like those like top 10 talents in that year when they're not going to go overseas now.
Listen,
That's what he was doing. That's exactly what his plan was.
Gambling is illegal until
genius.
we do. Oh, for sure.
Like
the
even,
Ball family.
Yeah, especially like even I think Lonzo got a lot of that too. That what we were talking about was kind of like, oh, you pussy because you're passing it. You know what I mean? Like,
right,
when he
and he's a
shooting
zoomer and he's got the hair.
He's got the hair, but like even that year he was at UCLA, like I think they had this like, I don't know, this couple dudes on the team who I don't they might be playing pro elsewhere, but he would just have them going off, like a couple of his teammates. And like I agree with that, with the culture stuff and some things being, obviously it's easier to say when you're in a better position, but I don't know. I like thinking about observing the game and like seeing ways that I mean, even watching LaMelo, like obviously he's got crazy wingspan and crazy talent, but he's also like, I feel like how loose he plays is like really infectious.
That's a good
Here's a
point.
question, and I have no answer for this, and I believe we've posed this on the show before. I've asked people what they think, and I don't have an answer for this. Is that you've got this family, right? And I've never seen LeVar play. I don't know. Was he a great passer? I have no clue. But you have Lonzo, who is a fantastic passer. And then you have LaMelo, who is a absolutely brilliant passer. Just incredible. And then you have LiAngelo, who I also am not really sure how he is as a passer. But beyond LeVar's ability to raise 3 kids who went into the NBA, including 2 that were top 3 picks or whatever, is LaMelo a great passer? because LeVar taught him to be one? Or is he a great passer because his older brother was one?
I think those boys understood that throw the ball down the court as fast as possible, get the first good shot, maximize possessions. I think that's something LeVar taught them, how they started playing. And I think that's almost like I actually wrote a basketball essay for GQ, and I had all these, I got a bunch of it got cut out. But I have this whole like theory of that, you know? It's like, it's probably started with the Suns, but that whole idea, I feel like, I can't tell you how many times, like, you know, you're in a good flow in a pickup game, and then you got to dribble the ball slowly up the court, and it just kills it, you know?
My man, finally, it is my one most like the pet peeve in playing ball that gets like my gears grinding is the other team scores and someone will get the ball and like mosey over to the baseline, kind of not even looking up, turn around and kind of just toss it in. Like that shit kills me. I hate it so much.
That's not it. Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like they took that to an absurd level. Like those games, like, I don't know. But again, you know, it's not like they're playing that offense now in the NBA, you know, or in Charlotte completely. But there's that energy, you know, get the ball down the court quick.
I remember
and that's like a trust and flow.
For sure. I remember when Morey signed Lin to that poison pill. I think he pointed out a stat where, like, when the ball touches Lin's hands on the defensive end of his court, he's like top 5 in the NBA at getting his team a shot up. Like he thinks fast and it just goes quickly. And I love Emmanuel quickly for that reason too, no pun intended. But like he just pushes the fucking ball, right?
Yeah.
Like even if he has like a 1-on-3, he's just like, well, maybe I can catch someone off balance. I'm just gonna attack the fuck out of this rim, you know? And this is what playoff basketball kind of sucks. And this is the frustration of seeing Doc Rivers coach versus the Atlanta Hawks, right? Like, so dribble handoff, slow everything down. Is everyone in place? And I'm like, he's going to lose this game.
That's why I quit college. That's why I quit in college. I was like, I'm trying to run, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I look at the guys who are my favorites, and I think that word you use, infectious, is a good one. Yeah. And like they play with this speed that makes everyone run harder, and they play with the speed that makes everyone get to their spots because they know they'll get the ball. And like that mix of speed and unselfishness is, you know, on one part why I love LeBron, but also guys like Draymond, guys like Ben Simmons, who are, you know, not these tiny little guys, but I like guys who are sort of atypical for their position of being, you know, 6'7", 6'8", 6'9", 6'10", but play with that speed and unselfishness. I feel like there's such anomalies. I mean, I like Jokic. He does the same thing. He just doesn't have that same like explosiveness, but he does it. He gets the ball and goes. Yeah, I love those players. They're all like, I just basically named all my like current favorite players in the league besides Kyrie or something like that. Or
I wonder who really started that. I'm thinking about how Kevin Love used to do those full court transition passes, you know. But he got lost along the way.
I would have loved to see Lamar Odom fully unleashed as that kind of player.
If he came out 10 years, 10 years later.
Yeah. Get the board, push it up court, sham god someone, throw a no look pass.
Yeah, exactly.
At 6'10", I think he would have been a totally different kind of star than he was in the NBA today.
It's cool to see. It's cool to see players like that. It's more like soccer.
You're a famous Steve Nash hater. So where do you put him in this discussion?
Basketball genius, but he's a short king. You know, I can't identify with short culture. I don't get it.
7 seconds or less.
Exactly.
I mean, he was the guy, right?
I mean, I like that he's probably taller than me.
There'd be no Steph without Steve Nash.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, Draymond is also one of those players who
definitely
keeps on plays with their head.
I love Steve Nash. It's only bristling at people saying that he's better than AI. When I'm like, look, it was a different era. Nash was a great shooter. He was a great player, but we saw what someone could do in D'Antoni's offense when they were like a legitimate superstar and not like a very good player, which I believe Steve Nash was. I think he was really good. He was perfect for that fit. But you drop James Harden into that system, and he's putting up 30, 12, and 12.
Yeah.
He got a little extra love
Jeremy Lin blew up in that, Jordan Farmar and Steve Blake put up numbers in that point guard centric system before the league had adapted. Again, Nash, Hall of Famer. I'm not mad at him. He's a great player, basketball genius, incredible shooter, great passer, great vision, push the tempo, awesome.
But I
just don't think he's
too many
on the
MVPs.
same level as those other guys.
Yeah.
And it's cloaked in racism, right? It's like making sure that we identify the white point guard, like the John.
My
Stockton.
racism towards Canadians, yes.
But it's like the white quarterback thing, right? It's just like, well, Iverson was just physically gifted, but Nash was cerebral. I'm like, oh fuck, like that always is the undercurrent of this discussion, which is some bullshit.
Super smart player. Yeah, exactly.
I love Steve Nash, but like, yeah, he was never the MVP of the league, but he's awesome.
I rooted for him too. I was a big fan of that Suns team. I wanted them to beat the Spurs in the worst way. My toxicity towards Steve Nash is only a more recent development, and it's because of how people have kind of positioned him in retrospect. I mean, we saw him on the Mavericks as a normal player during his sort of chronological prime, like by age, 27, 28, 29 on the Mavs. He was a borderline all-star, really good player, And then we're supposed to say that in his 30s, he just became this way better player under Mike D'Antoni, who had the cheat code. I'm like, we saw both. Right. We have enough information on Nash. He was a scrub for his first 5 years of his career. I just feel like he's a good player, but if you put him ahead of Iverson, I'm going to war. That's all I'm saying.
I feel that. Yeah. Those are probably two of the most influential players on me coming up too, in that order. But I never lost my inner Iverson when I was working on my perfect form jump shots. You know what I mean?
I feel like Nash seems like a pretty good coach. I have no evidence of this, but I think he's pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, he's also trying. Occasionally, he'll get scapegoated. He's dealing with two basketball geniuses on the court, maybe a third if he's lucky in the second round or first round of the playoffs. But how much coaching can you do with a late career Kevin Durant or late career Kyrie Irving, right? Like, you're running plays for them, but like they kind of got this, right?
Yeah.
I'm imagining him like having them run weave drills. Okay.
Yeah,
exactly.
Run it back. Suicides.
Yeah. And he was hired as a player's coach, so he wouldn't get in the way, I believe.
Well, remember Kyrie said that they have like 3 coaches.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, the hierarchy probably breaking down in that locker room, but I want to see them all go off.
I feel like a key guy in that locker room is Bruce Brown because he's funny.
He's funny. We heard this rumor. Our buddy Pablo mentioned this, like when we were watching the Nets, and then I started paying attention to it. He is fucking funny.
He's funny. Those quotes he had before the Knicks game about like how the fans weren't going to say anything mean about KD or Kyrie because that was 250 balls.
Yeah.
But he hoped that they could get out there and blow him out. I'm like, oh, this guy's funny.
Yeah.
Damn.
He's kind of good
That's
too,
important.
man. Okay. Can we just talk brass tacks a little bit? What's going on with the playoffs?
Well, we don't know other than the play-in game, right?
All right, let's talk
There's still a lot of matchups that are completely undecided.
Yeah, but there's some matchups, for example, Toronto and Philly, that are definitely decided.
Are you thinking the Raptors are going to pull off?
Toronto knocks out
first round?
Philly.
Wow.
So you're going Toronto. Quo, where are you on
LaMelo
this?
goes off, gets in the play-in game. They lose in 5 in the first round, and the one game they win, LaMelo drops like 45.
I'm on the side of you got Joel Embiid, I think the MVP, and you have James Harden, who's a fucking great player. I know there's no tie ball in Toronto. Just do it. Take care of business.
Yeah.
The Sixers should win this series. I know Toronto's good. I know they're annoying, just fucking win this series, man. You got the MVP.
Well, I would say this. I don't know what Toronto really, really, really looks like at full strength, or if they're going to be at it. Like, are we going to get OG and Fred VanVleet? I don't think so.
They've been playing a little bit.
I don't. That's what I mean. I don't know. Are they going to be playing like, 35 minutes a game in a week? I'm just not sure.
Right.
As an intact team, Toronto was really tough. I mean, they have a bunch of good players. They're versatile. They have all these 6'9" guys that just can switch everywhere.
Scotty Barnes might be their best player, man.
Barnes is really good. Siakam is really good.
Yeah.
My boy Precious has been knocking down threes, 40% clip.
Your boy Precious did not show out versus the Knicks, that's for sure.
Tanking.
That's right.
But I'm with you though, Andrew, in that I think Philly should win. You've got James Harden and Joel Embiid. You have the two best players on the court. You have Tobias Harris, who is, for whatever his flaws, he is a legitimately quality player. You have Tyrese Maxey, who, everyone insists is a rising star. I just mean you have a better record. You should win that series.
Get it done.
I do think missing Thibault is a problem.
That's what I was.
But you've got home court advantage for a reason here. So
exactly.
I think Philly wins that series. But also, I can't promise you that Doc Rivers won't screw this up. I cannot make that guarantee on a perfect podcast.
Should we talk about the blog post?
Oh, yeah. Well, you can, since I wrote it, you can talk about it.
Well, Sean, basically...
I'll talk about your beautiful art.
In a nutshell, last season, the demise of the Sixers was kind of predictable in that Doc Rivers doesn't value the most effective lineups necessarily.
Yeah.
He's an old school guy. I think he's waiting for talk about masculinity. He's waiting for these players to show fortitude and show their championship merit,
Yeah.
And he misuses some lineups and some players here and there. And this is when you're talking about a game of inches, it turns into a big deal. And the flaws that were exposed last year versus Atlanta seem to be persisting still. And the starting lineup for the Sixers is tough to beat. They are one of the best 5 players together in the NBA. But as soon as you get past them, the combinations that Doc is throwing out there may present a big enough problem where it could compromise maybe a series in round 1 versus Toronto.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing that Andrew and I put together, and when I say I wrote it, it's stuff that Andrew and I talk about. So
whatever.
Again,
Yeah.
I just mean
writer.
No, I'm not even. I mean that it's our ideas.
Sure.
Shit that we talk about. But the main emphasis is just that to have a lineup that has like the best net rating in the NBA. They're crushing people.
Damn.
That a good example is that Raptors game of the night. The starting lineup of the Sixers annihilated the Raptors starters, but they lost the game.
Damn.
And it's like, if you have this talent that can put up these kind of numbers, and you've got some role players who we can agree are pretty useful shooters, some defenders, a couple ball handlers, why are you getting smoked when both of your stars, when one of your 2 stars is off the court? Like, why can't you figure this out? Like, the personnel is here, and that was kind of what the story tried to unpack, was figuring out why is this happening. And I arrived at, Doc Rivers has an addiction to certified hoopers. That he wants guys who dribble a lot and are ISO scorers, and he's sleeping on the guys who play defense, play their role, shoot threes and otherwise space the court, and like the minimalists, that he's stuffing lineups of guys who all just kind of want to get buckets, and there's not enough other things occurring.
Yeah.
And if you have Joe and you have James, you probably don't need that many, walking buckets surrounding them.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the Sixers, for me, I didn't actually know that they had the best net rated starting lineup, so that might go against this. But I was in a bar in South Philly when Kawhi hit that buzzer beater. You know what I mean? And like I've just been watching, and then also
Brutal.
going back to like those Clippers teams. You know, that like borderline super team that Doc was coaching, and some of their chokes and stuff. Like I just feel like the slow down control. You're like I just even the whole idea. You know, you said they're waiting for a certified hoop. I just feel like no matter how good Embiid is in the regular season, like I just don't think that system's gonna go far in the playoffs. So if it's not the Raptors, you know, I don't know. I always feel like watching the Sixers and Doc's teams, they're not able to like achieve like the god level flow for like these spurts that teams need to get into.
Do you think Embiid getting to the line would? I mean, he's even getting better at it. Do you think that'll help him in the playoffs?
But that kind of kills the flow. I feel like,
Hell's
you know,
right.
I mean,
I don't know.
I think there's that's true. I feel like KD kind of pointed that out one time.
Yep.
And was like, yeah, we foul him. It doesn't feel as if, you know, we're giving up buckets. At the other side of that, though, is that the defense is able to get back pretty easily in those situations.
That's
so you
true.
don't really get transition opportunities that you would when someone's, you know, missing jumpers and things like that. My main thing is when you get a bad matchup in the playoffs, how do you survive it? You know, like how do you figure that out? You know, when the Bucks went against Miami a couple of years ago, and were trying to use kind of a nerd ball system that was all about expected value of possessions, pushing the pace to this crazy amount, chucking lots of threes, and saying we're going to beat you because we're going to break even on threes, but we're going to score more points than you in the paint because we have Giannis, and we're going to stick defenders everywhere, and you're not going to score at that same, you know, volume, efficiency, whatever. And they ran into the Miami Heat, who have Bam Adebayo, who is one of the few guys in the league who can credibly stonewall Giannis. And they did that. And they also had the shooting, you know, with Duncan Robinson and Tyler Hero and those guys. I think it was Jay Crowder was on that team as well, maybe. And they broke the Bucks' whole system. So the Bucks retooled and came back with Drew Holiday, you know, more pieces who were versatile. And they ended up, you know, going on to win a championship. So that's kind of what I wonder about Philly. You know, if you go into a series against a team that figures out a way to guard Joe, they're going to run traps at him. They're going to do all these different things to take your best player and turn him down and turn him into a lesser player. How do you survive it? And I don't know if the Sixers have that answer because it should be James Harden.
Right.
Except they're not really featuring him in the way that you would want to if it's going to be James Harden.
Well, it's go time for James Harden. That's for damn sure.
And Ben made a good point in that article where it's like, if you put Milton and other ball handlers around James Harden, you're kind of negating the uniqueness of James Harden, right? As a big guy who plays like a point guard. And you need the ball in James's hands. And this is what we were talking about last season with Simmons. I'm like, don't take the ball out of Simmons' hands. Put the ball into Simmons' hands. Don't have these dribble handoffs. Trust the thing that got you there. And I just don't think playing Shake Milton 20 minutes does James Harden many favors if he's not just spotting up.
That was the irony of the whole thing with Simmons, was that the people who are his biggest detractors are like, he's just standing there, he's useless, he's not doing anything. I'm like, I know that's what we're saying too.
Right.
Like, give him the ball so he's not standing there doing nothing uselessly. I agree. But I think the Raptors Philly series should be really fun. I like both those teams a lot. You've got the history of the Kawhi shot in there. The one point I made on Twitter was that the criticism that people have towards Harden doesn't quite seem accurate to me. That, you know, he does look a little bit slower than the past. He's got a ton of mileage. You know, the guy has had hamstring injuries.
His first step is gone.
But I'm not totally sure that he's not as good as he was in many ways, because we're talking about James fucking Harden. Like, this idea that James fucking Harden, you know, one of the biggest offensive juggernauts in NBA history over the last decade, like, got a little slower and is just like a mediocre player. So I went into the numbers and I looked at them. James Harden is putting up 37 and 10 in the minutes where per 36. In the minutes where Joel is off the court. Like, those are his average numbers from his prime in Houston.
Yeah.
Like, he is giving you the exact same output, same efficiency, same assists, same scoring. Just a monster when Joe's off the court. So when he's on there with Joe, now he's playing a facilitator and trying to help guys like Tobias and Maxey get shots. But this goes back to what you were just saying. If you want Joe to be like offensive monsoon Joel Embiid, then don't put him out there with walking buckets. Put him out there with shooters and spot up guys and defenders and say, Joe and James, you're just going to carry this team. Because otherwise, I could see them losing and people saying, Harden put up 18 points a game. That's not what we paid for.
Right.
That's not what we want.
We want Buddy Hield.
This guy, he's washed. He's rinsed. I'm like, yeah, you guys said that about Al Horford too, and now he's like good again.
Well, this is a kind of like a nuance, right? Because I agree. James Harden is an all NBA player still. He's still fucking James Harden, right? But I believe his first step, taking the first defender, getting past the first defender, he was like in the 95th percentile. Now he's in the 50th percentile. And when you watch the games, bro, defenses are kind of sticking to his left hip a bit, and he's drawing fouls, which is great. But his game is changing. It's not the same James Harden I remember in Houston, and that's fine. He's still an all NBA player, but he's adjusting to his lack of burst on the fly, and I don't know how that spells out in terms of spacing, but teams are solving him in different ways now.
I don't know. I just mean, if you put him in lineups where he can do those things that he did, just busting someone's ass off the dribble, driving to the paint, trying to score.
But he's not doing that anymore.
But how are you going to do it? You got
But maybe he
Shake
doesn't
Milton's
need to
guy
do it,
lurking
right?
there. But I'm saying you've got Shake Milton's guy lurking there. You've got Maxey's guy lurking there. You have Harris's guy lurking there. You have Embiid posting up.
Right.
I mean, it's only like 60-some possessions, so
Right, it's
maybe
hard to
minutes.
say.
I forget. But there was one where when Tobias was off and Joe was off, he's averaging 42 points per 36 minutes.
He's great.
I just feel like the context, I feel like people are looking at like, he looks slow, he's not finishing right. I'm like, but look at the organism. Look at the people who are around him. Look where defenders are. Eric Gordon isn't dragging someone 3 feet behind the line. Or like Ryan Anderson or one of those guys who was in Houston.
Right.
They don't have 3-and-D guys everywhere. It's a bunch of guys who you can run off the line pretty easily, which means that you can play 2 steps closer into the paint. Harden's drawing fouls at the highest rate of his career. And I think that's because there's other defenders in the lane. I don't know. I'm just saying, I think the Harden thing about him being slower and stuff is a little bit more nuanced than
for sure. It's
that
complicated.
he's just rinsed.
Yeah. No, he's not
I
rinsed.
want to see him go off.
Oh, man, he's so good. But I love the transformational players. You mentioned Al Horford. He's a much different player than he was 4 years ago, right? Boris Diaw changed throughout his career. These are all geniuses. These 3 players are the smartest guys on the court on any given game. So I don't expect James Harden to be washed. I just think he's of course he's changing. Toronto's defense is number 1 since the All-Star break. Or in the last 10 games, my bad.
Dang.
I think they're number 5 since the All-Star break and number 1 since 10 games ago. That's going to be a fun-ass series, man.
It's going to be fun.
So, I was going to say, before we let you go here, because we're going to get answers to this tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah.
Play-in tournament.
Oh.
Okay, so the East is locked in. You've got Cavs against Brooklyn, and then you've got the Hornets against the Hawks.
Yeah.
And then West, we've got the Clippers against Timberwolves. That's tasty. And then we've got the Spurs versus the Pelicans.
Sucks.
Who do you got coming out of the play-in tournament in the East? Out of that,
Okay,
Cavs, Brooklyn, Hornets, and Hawks.
In the East, I got Brooklyn beat the Cavs.
Ooh.
Then I got I'm just my bracket's so sentimental.
Oh shit! Let's see it.
Then I got just 2 legendary battles. and the Hornets take out the Hawks, and then the Cavs. I'm sticking with it.
I like
that.
so that's what I would like to see.
Yeah, that's what I
do
wanna
like
see.
playoff Trey. Playoff Trey is fun. I'd be good with.
I love trades.
I like the Cavs. I like Garland, but I need the Nets in for sure. I feel like
Yeah.
the Hornets are more fun than the Hawks, but the Hawks are slightly more dangerous.
Both
Yeah.
those teams are very fun to watch. Like
cool,
Ice
though, either
Trey
one, yeah.
in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Like, let's go.
Yeah. And then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No. Let's go. I'm just.
Well, just in the West, I
anticipating.
just got I got the Timberwolves beating the Clippers, and then the Clippers we win in the next game.
Yeah, that looks about right to me too. Yeah, I think I'm with you. These are just the most fun things. That's all I want to win. I don't have any other prediction. It's just who I want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's how I'm doing it. So I got the Warriors winning it all.
Oh, I love it. I love
go.
it. Yo, Luka going out with that calf sucks, man.
Is he
that
really
looks like
out,
a
though?
long-term injury.
Damn.
I mean, he limped off like grimacing. Like calf muscles suck, man. I'm worried
So
about.
unfortunate.
I'm worried about Dallas now.
Yeah, that's not great. Losing Luka Doncic going into the playoffs, like I could see that hurting the Mavericks.
Meaningless game too. I believe it was all set. He was just trying to get his. There was no implications for that game. Sucks. Do we want Memphis
Not
to
every
win?
game could be the perfect pod.
You guys got who's winning it all?
Yo, Phoenix is one of the great teams I've ever
Yeah.
seen. So,
Yeah.
but shout out to Bam Adebayo and the Heat. I don't think they're getting enough respect. That's a pretty good team.
If I had to bet, I think I would bet on the Bucks only because even though Phoenix is, in my opinion, like undeniably the best team, like their record is just so comically good that you're just a dick if you say you don't believe in the Suns at this point. Like I don't even really believe in them, but it's just too dickish not to believe in a team that almost won 70 games. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
That
They
team is fucking good, man.
They just smoked the entire league this year. I can't
Yeah.
be that much of a dick and be like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just don't know if they've solved the same reasons that they had so much trouble with Giannis last year. Like Biyombo is playing well, but I just don't think they have an answer for Giannis like they did not last year. That's my only reason I would take the Bucks, like gun to my head.
All right. It's on the record. Warriors,
On the record.
Bucks, Suns.
Yes, there it is. Sean, great having you here.
Thank you, man.
Likewise. Thank you guys
Listeners-
for having me.
Listeners, go buy multiple copies of Fuckboy. Give them to all your fuckboy boyfriends,
Let's go.
girlfriends,
Yep.
fuckboy fathers, mothers,
Nice.
everyone. Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. This was fun. All right.
I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.